welcome everyone to our weekly fabric news report. When we think about today's world compared to the past, we have come a long way escaping from a devastating past of oppression. But have we actually escaped such a tragedy? Does it still happen? Fast fashion, as we know it, causes major environmental and social problems, causing worker exploitation, child labor, microplastic waste, and landfills. Today, we're going to dive into the fast fashion industry in Asia and how overproduction has caused major problems from a social lens, looking into how well informed our public is about social issues within the fast fashion industry, based on data collected from a recent student led research. Joining me today are Minghe and Shenyu to help break it all down.
Thank you, Gia. The research method this group of students chose was through a short Google form consisting of 9 multiple-choice questions. The question focused on topics such as modern slavery and responsibility of labor oppression, aiming to see how well informed the public is about this topic. It was required that the people who took the survey gave their age group to prevent biases between different generations. The multiple-choice question was to prevent vague and relevant answers. The responses from the survey were gotten from students' social circle as they got a total response of 69. A total of 69 responses were received by the students from their social circle as they shared the survey on their social media platforms.
Shenyu, this survey data reveals significant public concern over the exploitation of workers in the fashion sector, with many respondents noting the industry's tendency to prioritize profit over worker welfare.
That's right. A survey of 69 participants indicates that nearly 40% of people believe companies frequently prioritize profit over workers' rights, with a significant number saying this is a regular, though not extreme occurrence, while about 26% of respondents believe this happens nearly all the time. It's clear that most people recognize a disconnect between business goals and ethical treatment of workers.
Interestingly, when we examine the broader picture, respondents were also asked about the role governments should play in improving labor rights in the industry. A majority, about 47.8%, support a comprehensive approach, with action ranging from policy changes to stricter enforcement of labor laws. This highlights a growing sentiment that labor rights issues cannot be taken in isolation but require a coordinated, multifaceted approach. That comprehensive view resonates with multiple philosophical frameworks. For example, utilitarianism, a Western ethical theory, emphasizes maximizing societal well-being. Respondents who supported a holistic government approach might see it as the best way to achieve a positive outcome for both workers and the environment. Meanwhile, Confucianism, which stresses social harmony, also supports this all-encompassing strategy, aligning with the belief that interconnected problems require equally interconnected solutions.
Absolutely. And when we consider the Sejahtera philosophy, which emphasizes balance and sustainability, we see that this approach mirrors the responses from the survey. Sejahtera suggests that governments and businesses should prioritize workers' welfare while maintaining environmental and social balance. It's clear that a holistic strategy not only addresses ethical concerns but also fosters long-term sustainability in the fashion industry.
Indeed, the data and philosophical viewpoints align in calling for systemic reform. Overproduction, labor exploitation, and environmental damage are seen as interconnected issues, and addressing one without the other simply won't work. The idea that these issues need to be solved together echoes the principle of moral responsibility, whether through Western ethics, Eastern traditions, or Sejahtera emphasize on collective well-being.
The survey also highlights public awareness of modern slavery in the fashion industry, with a significant portion of people expressing concern over child labor, forced labor, and unsafe working conditions, with 65.2% of the respondents acknowledging modern slavery as an ongoing issue. It's evident that public pressure is mounting for businesses to take more responsibility for labor practices.
And let's not forget, according to the survey, a large portion of respondents believe that fashion companies, not consumers or governments, are primarily responsible for labor exploitation. This view points to the significant power companies hold in shaping industry standards, including wages, working conditions, and outsourcing practices. But the message is clear. Businesses must adopt more ethical practices, while consumers and governments also play important roles in demanding change. It's a challenging issue, but the data and the philosophical frameworks all seem to agree. The fashion industry needs to adopt more ethical, sustainable practices. Governments, businesses, and consumers must work together with a focus on labor rights, environmental protection, and public awareness. The time for piecemeal solution is over. It's a time for a comprehensive, holistic approach.
Thank you, Mingy and Shinyu. To wrap up this week's news, today's highlights emphasize the significant societal impacts of the fast fashion industry, which many in the public are concerned about. According to survey data, most respondents believe the industry's tendency to prioritize profits over workers' rights come from a conflict between business goals and worker rights. By examining these findings through various philosophical perspectives, the importance of ethical actions to address labor exploitation, environmental harm, and overproduction through holistic and sustainable practices become evident. To prevent these issues from happening again, we highly encourage the government, business, and consumers to work together to transform the fashion industry into one that embodies ethical practices and sustainability. Stay tuned for Fabric News for more updates and let us know their thoughts on today's news in comment section below. Reporting for Fabric News, this is Gia. Thank you for watching and we'll see you again next week.